how Sheikh Abdullah puts it. He says the most powerful argument which can be advanced in her favor is that Pakistan is a Muslim state.
Yes.
And a big majority of our people being
secular...
Muslim, the state must succeed to Pakistan. But then he says,
I agree. So either you do it,
so
either you do it.
You cannot envisage, therefore, a situation like a Brexit type referendum.
Yes.
That's a political decision which was taken by the then government.
Yes. Forget about it. The central question is, can the Union of India, in this manner, terminate that relationship that is constitutionally recognized in Article 370? Absolutely, absolutely. It's a fraud on the Constitution itself, according to me.
Specifically speaks about the importance of the affiliation with India and accession to India, because he speaks in terms of, first he speaks about the Indian Constitution.
That's correct.
Second, it's very important from a historical perspective. Sheikh Abdullah refers to the land reforms which were taking place post the First Amendment and the other amendments which took place to the Constitution. He says Pakistan, on the other hand, is a feudal state.
That's correct.
And therefore, our interests would not be protected in a feudal Pakistan as compared to an India where land reforms were taking place. Then he refers to the fact that, India has, of course, the access to the seas and therefore a better, as an economic powerhouse for us to carry on trade through the auspices of India. And this really continues until PDF page 107.
I didn't want to refer to it because it would take too long. Two, it's the background, but we are dealing with a temporary provision. That's why I didn't refer to it. But all that is very important. The reason is simple. Ultimately, what did J&K do? The people of J&K gave to themselves the constitution, just as the people of India gave to ourselves this constitution. So central to all this is the will of the people. And therefore, you will have to compare it to the...
Very interestingly, see how Sheikh Abdullah puts it. He says the most powerful argument which can be advanced in her favor is that Pakistan is a Muslim state.
Yes.
And a big majority of our people being Muslim, the state must succeed to Pakistan. But then he says, this claim of being a Muslim state is, of course, only a camouflage. It is a screen to dupe the common man so that he may not see clearly that Pakistan is a feudal state in which a clique is trying by these methods to maintain itself in power.
Absolutely. Chief is right. The point I'm making, Mullah, is ultimately what's the essence in this matter that your lordships are hearing? The will of the people of a state where the executive act of the Union of India, which decimates the will of the people. That's the issue before you. That's what your lordship, because all the three acts of the Union of India are executive acts. 356 deletes the proviso of Article 3. That's an executive act.
Mr. Sibal, look at the foresight of the speaker. He says, these days, economic interests and a community of political ideals more appropriately influence the policies of state.
Absolutely, absolutely.
He had this vision in 1951 when he was speaking about the importance of economic interest, which is what the world is talking about today.
Absolutely.
In a globalized world.
And in that situation, the ruler had no choice. Absolutely no choice. So, the point I was making is that we are now dealing with three executive acts. One, the 356. Two, change of interpretation in the definition of Constituent Assembly under 367(1). And the abrogation. These are all executive acts. The will of the people is not considered at all. That's the question. Can you delete provisions of the Constitution by an executive act? Can you decimate the Constitution by an executive act? Can you change the Constitution by an executive act? We're not talking about legislation here. We're not talking about parliamentary legislation. That comes after these executive acts, mullahs, are implemented. That's the question. That's the...
Say it's an executive act.
I'll say 356 is executive. 367 definition is executive. These are all executive acts. Parliament came into the picture when the changes had already been done through executive acts. We're challenging that.
As you argued, the process was wrong.
Yes.
Whatever was done. But
Yes.
that is the Parliament did it.
No, Parliament accorded approval to the executive acts which unilaterally changed the constitution as it was applicable to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. That's the central question that your lordships will have to decide. Could Parliament have, could the Union of India have done it?
So is it your case that the Parliament could have done it?
No, not at all. Well, that also I will answer. Well, let's kindly see. Ultimately, this was a political decision taken in the context of the situation then prevailing. Right? And the complete abrogation of Article 370 must also be a political decision. Whereas your lordships will remember Brexit, what happened? In Brexit, what happened? There was no constitutional provision seeking a referendum. But when you want to sever a relationship which has been entered into, you must ultimately seek the opinion of the people. Because people are central to this decision, not the Union of India. It goes counter to the very grain of Article 370.
Mr. Sibal, in a constitutional democracy, seeking the opinion of the people has to be through established institutions.
Agree?
Right? So long as a democracy exists, as it does, in terms of a constitutional democracy,
Yeah.
any recourse to the will of the people has to be expressed and sought in terms of established institutions.
I agree. So
There's no
either you
question.
do it,
So
either
you cannot,
you do it. Well,
you cannot envisage, therefore, a situation like a Brexit type referendum.
Yeah.
That's a political decision which was taken by the then government.
Yes.
But within a constitution like ours, there's no question of a referendum.
But this is a political decision that they have taken by unilaterally through an executive order, changing definitions. This is not some constitutional decision. That's what your lordships, supposing your lordships were to say that they can change the definition, or your lordships were to say.
But therefore, the ultimate question is whether the constitution does or does not interest that authority.
That's correct. That's all that I'm asking, Miller. I'm not asking for anything more.
And which in turn depends on whether 370 is construed as you say, a permanent feature, irrespective of the terminology used, because that is in the context of the changes till the Constituent Assembly was there, or is it something which is capable of being?
Well, let me see. That's a much higher level, Malas, to which I'm not, in fact, arguing that today. Malas, whether it is permanent or it is temporary, let's forget about it. The central question is, can the Union of India, in this manner, terminate that relationship that is constitutionally recognized in Article 370?
You understand?
It may not be permanent. It may be permanent. It may not be. You may change it. You may. You may have.
In the context that that was the argument earlier. So we have come to the next argument, which is the manner in which it is done.
That's right.
Is flawed accordingly.
It's absolute. It's a fraud on the Constitution itself, according to me. It is politically motivated. It is a political act. These executive orders are political acts. They're not constitutional acts. That's my submission. And whether it is a permanent feature or a temporary feature is really, at the moment, not an issue.